Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and according to some new information, Xbox might be more invested into their Nintendo partnership than what you might expect. Now, of course, we know that they want to port some of their already developed games to the Switch too. Sea of Thieves seems to be the most obvious choice. But what if Xbox sees Nintendo as a way to develop games that they might not have otherwise without Nintendo? Because that's currently what we're hearing. Yeah, personally, I think this is extremely exciting because some of my favorite games from Xbox isn't necessarily from some of their most iconic IP. So we're going to get into all of that today, but first, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you so much for what you do, and I truly do appreciate each and every one of you. Well, let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with Fantasy Life I yet again. Now, we've already talked about this game a few different times this week, and one reason for that is because I think it's just crazy just how little coverage it's currently getting from the media. I really don't understand that, given that it comes from Level 5 out of all companies. I mean, they're universally beloved for a very good reason. They've made some great games, some commercially very successful games in the past, whether that be Ni no Kuni. They made Professor Layton, the Yokai Watch series, and yes, Fantasy Life for the 3DS. So it shouldn't come as a major surprise that Fantasy Life I also appears to be a very good game. I've really heard nothing but good things about it, and, well, it seems like word of mouth is rolling. It's currently listed as the global best-selling paid-to-play game on Steam as we speak. Now, to be fair here, it doesn't necessarily have a ton of competition in terms of brand new releases. I do feel like sometimes people maybe overstate these best-selling games on Steam and what it actually means. I mean, if you're a big new AAA game, unless your game just bombs, I mean, there's a very good chance that it'll top the charts, and even if it does, that still doesn't mean that your game is successful if you're a big AAA game. But, this is a little bit different in the sense that Fantasy Life I is a smaller, lesser-known game without a ton of advertising behind it. So with that, big congrats to Level 5, and hopefully they can continue that success with more word of mouth and the eventual Switch 2 release. My only thing about all this, though, is that I feel like they do need a true physical release here in the West to pair alongside the Switch 2. I think that could help get more eyes on it in the future. Now, we also have a sales update for Doom: The Dark Ages. There's been a lot of conversation, a lot of discourse around its player count. It really hasn't stood out on the Steam charts in terms of concurrent player numbers, and then even with the official numbers, there's still been some skepticism as to whether or not it's been truly successful. Well, Ampere Analysis broke its 3 million players down, and this is what they came up with. According to them, just under 2 million of those 3 million players are on Xbox and on Xbox Game Pass. Now, we don't know the total units sold. Obviously, Game Pass plays a vital part in those numbers, but then over on PlayStation, it's just over 500,000 players. So it seems to be about a 50-50 split on PlayStation and PC, with just over 1 million units sold. And again, some people look at this and they're not necessarily wowed by its launch numbers. But I will say, looking at the past two Doom titles, I think this seems to be fairly solid. Doom 2016 sold just under 1 million units in its first month. So The Dark Ages is actually selling faster than that, despite it being a part of Game Pass. Now, okay, Doom Eternal, on the other hand, that game did sell much faster. It sold 3 million units within its first week, but admittedly, it also launched during the pandemic period, back when games were selling at an all-time high. That's just not repeatable. So it is an apples to oranges comparison, but let me know what you all think about these numbers. Are you impressed by them? Do you think they're bad? Or are you like me and you just think, okay, it seems solid enough? Now, speaking of Bethesda games, yet another leaker has claimed that Starfield will soon come over to the PlayStation 5 and that it will be announced sometime this year. This is according to Nate the Hate, and okay, some people trust him, some people don't. I get it. Always be cautious when it comes to any kind of leak. Though I will point out that he was the first to leak Xbox's plans to go multi-platform with games like Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush. So I do put more stock into his Xbox port leaks than I do for some other people online. Now, I'm not going to name any names, but there are some personalities out there that just likes to throw Xbox port leaks at the wall in the hopes that they'll, stick so they can call themselves a leaker for more views. Okay, whatever. But Nate has proven himself on various occasions, and I could definitely see this happening. Starfield will soon be 2 years old. I mean, that's kind of hard to believe, but that's the truth of it. It's pretty much done its job on Xbox and PC by this point, and in order to make it more successful, this is a big game that probably cost them a lot of money to make, so a PlayStation port makes a lot of sense. My only thing about all this, though, is that I'm very curious to see some people's reactions to its announcement. There were definitely a few YouTubers out there and a few social media accounts that pushed a lot of just nonsensical discourse leading up to Starfield's release. And, it'll be funny if all of a sudden these same people make some hype videos for the PlayStation version if and when it gets announced. Now, again, I'm not going to name any names here, but either which way, what I'll tell you right now is just from my own personal opinion, is that if you haven't played Starfield already, and if you're at least somewhat interested, I think it's a solid game. It's definitely not a generational type of game as some people hyped it up to be. There was definitely some overhype pre-release. But if you like Bethesda RPGs, then I think there's some fun to be had in this universe. I'd actually rank it below both the Elder Scrolls and Fallout. Now, to be fair, Starfield is a brand new IP, but what I'm trying to say here is that it's not bad as some people try to make it out to be. It's still a good, solid game, and that's all I'm trying to say here. Now, since we're on the topic of Xbox games on non-related Xbox consoles, I mean, okay, I guess to Microsoft, everything is an Xbox now, though I don't know if PlayStation and Nintendo would necessarily agree with them on that. Take that as you will, but there's actually a very interesting rumor currently going around that I'm personally very excited about if this turns out to be true. I mean, at the end of the day, this is only a rumor, and we should take it as such. Proceed with caution. But regardless, this comes from Nash Weedle, which admittedly I am skeptical of a lot of the things that he claims online, but there are a lot of people, specifically within the Nintendo community, that puts a lot of faith into his rumors. So I'll let you be the judge on this. Believe what you want, but he's currently claiming that Xbox is working on 2 games that's specifically targeting the Nintendo audience. So these are games that might not necessarily fit with Xbox's audience or, historically, but apparently they would fit perfectly on the Nintendo Switch 2 and with its fans. And it's that statement that really hits home with me. Now, I'm going to go ahead and rewind back to the OG Xbox and Xbox 360 days when Rare received a lot of criticism for various different games that they released during those generations, whether that be for Cameo, Viva Pinatas, there was Perfect Dark Zero, and of course, the infamous Banjo Nuts and Bolts. Now, Nuts and Bolts is not my favorite game in the world, not because it wasn't good. I think it's a fine game, but rather it was just that it wasn't what I wanted from a Banjo game. However, each one of these games were good in their own right. And in fact, it's kind of funny to me because Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, for as much praise as it gets for its God Hand feature, that was already a thing in Nuts and Bolts. I'm just going to kind of throw that out there. You can see a lot of similarities between the 2 games. It definitely seems like there were some inspiration from Nuts and Bolts, and okay. But I've always wondered that if we were in a parallel world where Microsoft didn't acquire Rare, if a lot of these games that I just mentioned would have been more universally praised. And I think Xbox kind of knows the answer to that. They do have a different demographic, and they absolutely have some franchises that would have probably done better if they were to have released on a Nintendo platform. And to me, that's where this story becomes very exciting because the possibilities is endless. I mean, I've actually mentioned this before in the past. If there's one great thing about their multi-platform plans, is that they can now utilize Nintendo's fan base to revive a lot of their dormant franchises, whether that be Banjo-Kazooie. That's the one that I most want to see. But just continuing on, they have Conquer, they have Cameo, Viva Pinatas, they have Spyro now, which I actually believe that's one of the games that he's referring to. They also have Crash Bandicoot, they have Psychonauts, Voodoo Vince, Blinks the Time Sweeper, and even Lost Odyssey. You have to keep in mind that JRPGs are massive on Nintendo. They could easily do a remake of Lost Odyssey. This is something that its fans have wanted to see for a very long time, and they could put it on the Switch 2 and just watch it explode over in Japan. Over time, a lot of people have kind of discovered that Lost Odyssey is actually an all-time great JRPG. But the reality is that there are still a lot of people out there that unfortunately haven't played it because, again, Xbox's audience has never been super receptive to its genre in the same way that Nintendo fans would be. So this truly gives Xbox the ability to make games that they might not have otherwise seen as viable for Xbox. And that's truly exciting to me. Suddenly all these games makes a lot more sense under their new strategy. I want to hear your all's opinions about this, though. For one, if you like this strategy, what game would you most like to see from Xbox that might fit better for that Nintendo audience? And two, how do you feel about Xbox targeting another platform as their primary demographic? That's still kind of a controversial topic, so I want to hear what your opinion is in the comments below. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, have a great weekend, let's enjoy some NBA playoffs, and peace out.